Hey guys, what a special treat because I have Mrs. Klemczewski here. This is going to be a rare occurrence because she hates this more than you could possibly imagine. So we've been sitting here for 5 or 10 minutes just staring at the camera, trying to calm her down so she can actually do this. This is the first time this may have ever happened, probably the last time. But we talked earlier in this last couple of weeks about relationships. We're starting down that track as well. You guys might see by the logo and remember from my description that we're going to attack a pretty broad scope of topics here because we want to dig into real life stuff. And to live your best life, to truly, what I think is actualize the potential that you have and live that life that you want, it takes looking at all of those aspects that we all encounter, including relationships. And we celebrated our 25th anniversary, but like most couples, we have our stories where we could say, we almost didn't make it through that one. And it's kind of what I want to talk about. We're not going to air a lot of dirty laundry here today. We might sometime. But I do want to talk about a couple topics that segue out of what Dr. Probst mentioned. And Corey talked about the fact that the thing that she thinks is the single biggest aspect of a sustainable relationship is making sure that the other person feels valued and acknowledged. And she said the very first step to that is undivided attention. And Tracy and I went through a period about 2 or 3 years ago where we were having some troubles with what we thought was a significant piece of content. This in our relationship was just a deal breaker. We didn't know if we could get through it or not. And so I asked Tracy to go to a counselor. We've never done that before, even though we've worked pretty hard with some self-help things in our marriage, and we wouldn't have made it 25 years without paying attention and really putting our relationship first. But this was the first time that we really went out and sought some one-on-one help, some coaching, some counseling. And I thought it was great. I've continued to even do some of that on my own, some life coaching and so forth, but Tracy hated it. Just like this, she didn't like any part of that. So I want her, in her words, to just first explain maybe a little bit about what that was like. When I said, hey, let's go to a counselor, let's see if we can figure this out, why were you initially resistant, and then what was your experience like?
Well, it's just being vulnerable and talking to someone else about your feelings, and that is just not me.
Yes, that is definitely not you, which is one of the reasons we were there. But so interestingly, that was one of the things that really attracted me to Tracy when we first met. Was she's this quiet, sweet, nice person. And then after a while, you start wanting more than, that. You start wanting maybe deeper interaction or something. So do you remember, so let's go through, we went to a couple different counselors. What was one of the most painful parts of that when you thought, wow, this is definitely out of my comfort zone?
When he made us listen to each other and then describe what the other person just told you.
Wow.
Because I would sit there and try to memorize exactly what you said instead of listening to what you were saying.
Okay, so she has no idea that was the thing I would have picked as well. We didn't plan this. But that's what Corey said. She said, how I make my partner feel valuable is that I stop and I listen to him more than anything. I mean, besides, other ways of doing that. And it's so funny that was actually our second counselor, or third, maybe second, because Tracy just kept firing them. She didn't like him. She was just axing him. But so this guy, within 10 minutes of our very first counseling session, he just sat back in his chair and he was like, he said, you guys think it's about this. And he explained, we have content, which is what you think this is, and we have process. And these are his exact words. He said, your process is so fucked up, there is no content you could shove through this thing and it's going to come out the way you want. So he said, we have to work on process first. And that's what it was. So he made us do this exercise where we had to turn to each other and listen to what the other person said and then repeat back. And I'm not gonna say who was better at that or not, but it was truly just the exercise of paying attention and listening, and that actually is a skill. So I'm glad you said that because that makes a nice segue. Are we better at that now?
No, are we?
Yeah, so I even talked to Tracy about that earlier this week. I was saying something to her that's probably just mundane and stupid and trite, and yet she stopped and she sat there, and I think it was in a doorway, and she just listened to me and exchanged a little bit. And when we were finished, I said, wow, thank you for stopping and listening. I know that was whatever, it wasn't that important, but I appreciate that. And that was something that was learned. I mean, maybe 2 or 3 years ago you wouldn't have done that. So I did print out at least the bullet points to the article that Corey had sent me, and it is 7 rules to help you avoid divorce. So as I said before, just one of those kind of New Year's resolution type things. It's by Alan de Botton. I think that's how you pronounce his name. It was in a blog from this month, and it's actually from his book, The Course of Love. So the 7th thing, the 7th principle to help us avoid divorce, which is what we want to work on, right? Okay. We actually almost hit that point, and were you ever actually scared that that was going to happen?
Of course.
Yeah. So we did hit a really rough spot, and Tracy's just like a machine. So even though I had rented an apartment even, and I thought we were there, I was just blubbering all over the place in Corey's office, and I thought that was going to happen. And, Tracy just was like, yeah, whatever. I mean, that's what I was perceiving. And so inside, you were really feeling like this could actually happen?
I was afraid that you were planning that, but I was not at any point.
So did you think, wow, this guy's finally lost it? Or were you confident that we were actually going to make it?
I was not sure, just because of your reactions.
See, she's human after all. I like that. She just gives me this facade like, yeah, fuck you, buddy. I don't need you. Sometimes. Okay, so anyway, so the 7th point, which is 7 rules to help you avoid divorce, realizing that we're not that compatible. And this was really important. The piece of content that was kind of separating us at the time, I think came in because we met at a young age. We were 19 or 20, married a couple years later, had our first child at around 24. So having known each other since we were around 20, you almost get the feeling that you kind of grew up together. And our worlds at that point, when you're that old, are just about this big. And so you think, hey, you're human and I'm human. What more do we need? That's perfect. We're a perfect match. And so then life goes on, and you start seeing that, wow, we're either kind of growing in different directions or we really are a little bit different. And this was a big threat to both of us. We decided over time that we had really grown apart in a certain area, and that was a massive threat. Have you thought of it in terms of this, that it's actually okay and normal to not be the same?
I think it is.
It was a hard thing for me to deal with. So let's talk about for a second about how we kind of diverged. I'll let Tracy tell you the story of how we met. It's a little bit funny.
All right. Well, we were both going to college, and we had both decided we needed to get a job while we were in school. So I think we just both started the same week at Walmart. So, when they say you can find anything at Walmart, you really can find anything at Walmart, because I found my husband.
Yeah, I almost feel bad when I say how horrible an experience it is for me to go to Walmart now, because 25 or so years ago, 27 years ago, it was kind of fun to go to work because Tracy was there. So it was one of those weird love at first sight cliches. I mean, it was really kind of bizarre because I walked in one day and she was way down at the other end. She was a training cashier, and I mean, I just zeroed in right on her. And I mean, every single one of those cliches is true. The world stopped. It just like bam, like slow motion, tunnel vision. maybe not so much for you, or was that?
No, I first saw you when it was my first day, and you were going back to check in, and I was going toward the front, and I looked at you and thought, oh my gosh. And then I thought, no, don't even think it. He's taken. Because I was always trying to be defensive, you know, in case the guy wasn't interested in me.
So here's what's hilarious, right? We hadn't even talked. And yet we were both looking at each other, and it's like, wow, this is the person. And that is part of why I'm talking about these things in this vlog, Tribal 4.6, because those things matter. They happen. They're biological. They're psychological. This is important stuff. So here we were, looking at each other from across the store from time to time, and then, of course, the next step is somebody has to be brave enough to be vulnerable, and both of us suck at that. So how did that happen? How did we end up getting together?
I don't know if it was the first time, but as a cashier, you had to, at the end of the night, which Walmart was not open 24 hours at that time. So at the end of the night, we would have to go up to the service desk and get anything that was left up there and take it back to the department it belonged in. And so I am scanning it, trying to find something that goes with the food aisle, because that's where he was working.
I was the manager of the food department, shockingly, I know.
So I saw this, it looked like jerky, so I picked it up and I took it back to his department, and I found him and I said, I think this is for your department. And he looks down at it and goes, no, that's dog jerky treats. I think that goes to the pet department. So, you know, that was like, boom, you know, I just failed.
Yeah, but that's funny because I did the same thing. So, I mean, I remember looking at her and trying to, you know, just see, like, maybe as a trial balloon, if she caught me looking at her, she would think I'm interested, and then she would approach me, because we're both just horrible introverts. So I did the not so chivalrous thing of kind of sending a person in my place to get this accomplished. Somebody asked me, hey, we're going to all go out for pizza after work. Are you going to go? And I said, well, is Tracy going? You know, if Tracy goes, I'll go. So just kind of knowing that trial balloon would land on Tracy's lap. And so there we were, sitting across from each other and all that. So the courtship began. And then, as a true tribal-minded person would do, how did I try to impress you at least one time?
No.
What did I have to do to make sure you noticed me?
You came in on one of your days off and came through my line, and he had on this little bitty stringer shirt, you know, so that I could see all his huge muscles.
See, just coming from the gym, day off, you know, just probably worked out for 2 hours, and then just happened to need something at Walmart that day. So anyway, all of that goes to show you that those things that can start out as an attraction, if you want a sustainable relationship, they're going to go in so many different directions. We are not at all the same people on some levels, but then you still are, right? I mean, the personalities, the families, everything is still there. We've had 4 amazing kids, and it's just, it couldn't be better, but it's never without work. It's never without some pain. And as the 7th point here states, it comes with a realization that being compatible is not always the answer. Matter of fact, I'll read you this quote. It is the capacity to tolerate difference that is the true marker of the right person. Compatibility is an achievement of love. It should not be its precondition. So that's what we had to learn, kind of the hard way, is that even though we grew apart in some areas, we can still appreciate those things more. And maybe we'll stick it out another 25. Right?
Yes.
Maybe?
Yes.
Okay. Thanks, guys. Hope you have a great Valentine's Day.